What are your thoughts on universal design? Charlie Carr,
All right,
Boston,
so
Massachusetts.
to the credit of people like Elmer Bartels, the Architectural Access Act was passed in 1968, and it made federally required um, anything funded with federal money to be made accessible, including curb cuts. I remember the Elmer story that access to our own state house in Massachusetts didn't exist until that law was passed, and then people with wheelchairs could get into the state house to the lawmakers to advance our agenda politically. But yeah, Ed, there was when 504 was enacted, there was a boatload of money that came down from the federal government to look at barrier removal. And there were a number of national projects, and geez, I would defer to Fred probably and some others. But in any case, people grew up embracing universal design. The father of universal design is Ron Mace. Ron Mace has since passed on, but he was the one that created universal design, termed it, wrote about it, taught it, and talked about how it can be applied and used. And I can say, having been a person with a disability for since 1968, what's that, 30-something years, um, I've seen incredible changes, not only for people that use wheelchairs, but people that use white canes, people that are deaf that rely on telecommunications and signaling, and all of this, which was addressed by 504, which Ed and Judy and others forced in the 70s, and then reinforced by the ADA, has begun to slowly level the playing field. Another important person that has to be mentioned is Frank Bowe. Frank Bowe is a person who's deaf that is at Hofstra University, who is the first executive director of the American Coalition of Citizens with Disabilities. And he, probably single most, has been the person who's advanced telecommunications and built coalitions for people of all disabilities around computer access, around telecommunications access, and built coalitions so that people with all kinds of disabilities can benefit from access to telecommunications. But from those days when Ed began and when I started, and Elmer and Fred and others in this country, Max, the biggest problem I see is that people that have come along in the last 10 years or so or sooner don't understand that those things never existed. And part of the problem in this movement is that we haven't done well in history. That's why having a documentary like this is critical, because it documents people like myself and others that were there when there was no independence, there was no independent living, there was no public law that guaranteed the right to a free and appropriate education, barrier-free life. There was no Olmstead decision that said that if the state has to pay for your right to live independently in the community outside of an institution. None of this existed, and it keeps getting better and better. My fear is that the younger people of today will become complacent and won't want to push and push and push. Because when you look at the data and you just look at the people that you know that come into an independent living center like this, every one of them is still living in poverty. Every one of them is still disenfranchised. Most of them have no family of their own, meaning that they're afraid to marry, they're afraid to have to own anything, have a job, because of loss of money that keeps us poor. So we have to raise the bar, and we have to do it. And it's up to you guys, the younger folks, to keep raising that bar, because, you know, Fred and me and all the others, you know, we're approaching a point in our lives where we're banking that you guys are going to carry the torch and even do better than we are. So it goes beyond physical barriers. It goes to economic barriers. It goes to social barriers. I dream that someday I will get looked at right in the eye. I will be treated like anyone else. I won't feel the sting of discrimination every day of my life. And people that come along with me and after me will have a level playing field. Right now, it's far from level. And I don't think anyone should rest until it's level. It's all we want. It's just level. And when it's level, I don't think that'll be in my lifetime, but when it's level, I'll be smiling down on you saying, good job.